Hey, Paul.
Hey Linda, how are you?
Good, good. I'm fine. Congratulations on the movie. We've seen you play like an array of real life characters in your career. What was it about to this particular story that made you want to work on this?
Yeah, I think a true story is always something I gravitate to because there's just something amazing about it not being a fabrication, and you kind of do a double take in your mind anytime it is a true story. Um, I love Samir Oliveros, the director. I think he's brilliant, and I knew that he was going to do something really good with this particular film. But I think more than anything, I always gravitate towards specificity. So this being a game show, and I feel like that's not an oversaturated narrative setting. The only one I can really think of that I recall is, a quiz show, maybe Slumdog Millionaire. But I thought it was a really fresh take on that, and it was a character that I knew I could somehow inhabit.
What do you do when you get a story like this? You get offered a role like this. Do you go back and like read the minutiae of all the stuff that happened and who the person was, or do you just trust the screenplay? Do you stick to this what the script tells you?
Well, it's interesting because I think when I started earlier in my career, it was more about the research and bringing that to the narrative. And then I kind of realized during um, somewhere between Richard Jewell and Blackbird, which are both true stories, I realized, it's really about what's on the page. I forget that, you have to honor the story being told today. Um, so some things are loosely based on a true story, some things are as close as humanly possible, and you just have to decide what you're going to leave in or leave out. But I did take a lot of contextual clues from the life of the real Michael Larson. And, I thought maybe this was a particular niche or hobby of his, and he found it interesting to try and pull this off. But I would later find out that the guy, this was his whole life. He was always gathering intel in some sort of, irreverent, surreptitious, perversive way, and wanting to do some scheme based off of it, whether it was signing up at a bank because they give you a free allotment of money when you sign up, and then him doing that in an entire county or state. I mean, he did that. He did Ponzi schemes. You know, he sort of seemed a little childlike in those endeavors, but it eventually got really dark, and it went from kind of. I found that it went from Michael Larson gaming the system to deceiving real people. And so at first you can kind of get on board with it, like, ooh, he's taken from a major corporation. It's got a Robin Hood vibe to it. But in actuality, he made even greater compromises after this game show incident, and it eventually slowed him down. He got the better of him.
Yeah. Did you watch the full episode of the show where he is in? And was it
Uh,
was it important for you to sort of not so much emulate him, but like showcase the essence of him rather than mimicking who he was?
yeah, no, that's you just hit it perfectly when you said the essence of somebody, because I think if you go too exact, you run the risk of feeling like you're doing a Saturday Night Live impression or like a Mad TV type of character. It's about getting the essence of the guy, and what there were times where I wanted to play it a little more jovial, and Samir would dial it back in for me, the director. He would say to me, keep in mind this guy is still trying to pull off a heist, as it were. There's an intellectual heist going on some level, and so you got to pick and choose when the enthusiasm arises and when it kind of drops, and that became very influential to the character. But I did look at the body language a lot, the way he clapped his hands, the way he sat in his chair, the way he looked at the screen. It was just, I found a lot of childlikeness to it, and I tried to inhabit that. That idea of not being very self-aware in your celebration of the moment. You know, it's it's kind of fun to see people in that element, you both are like turned off by it, but also intrigued by it.
This isn't a story that's very well known here in the UK. I mean, I don't think anyone even knows the show itself, and I don't think we have anything similar here. And is it a quite well-known story in the US? Is it something that people like your parents' age will remember?
I don't know to what degree or level. When I did that movie I, Tanya, that was more the kind of thing where everybody knew about it. This was a little more hidden of the story, but I think I was surprised by how many people saw the documentary. I guess the Game Show Network did one or two documentaries about it. I ended up watching at least one of those, and a lot of people had seen that. So when I said Michael Larson, the moment I said press your luck, people are lighting up and they're like, oh, I know that story, or my dad remembers that he was watching it when it happened. Back in 1984, there weren't a million streamers or 70, 80 channels to watch. So there were probably a lot of people watching Press Your Luck, more than we think. So it did have a hold on America's attention and consciousness. And I think it'll be a fun sort of time capsule piece down memory lane for those that remember the show.
Can I ask what's next for you? Are you at all working on anything new or another character based perhaps on a real person, or are you sort of branching out on other stuff? I know you are always working. You're the kind of actor who I always see in things, and is that quite a good thing for you, or do you find time to take time off at all and sort of think of what you're doing next?
I love taking time off. But I think I've learned that life is just expensive. I have a third child on the way, and my wife is currently pregnant. Our two kids are in school now, and just there's a lot of life going on. And I think, I have been hard at work because I love being creative and doing it, but also just trying to like catch up. I think I learned something recently where I was like watching, sometimes you see a really good actor do kind of a silly movie or something schlocky, and you're like, wow, that guy did that. And it's like, well, you can't just do a bunch of art house films and still live in New York or LA and have two kids. Like, you have to pay the bills also. So I try to do a combination of just things that I speak to me and that I would go pay my money to see in a movie theater. And this is one of those stories coming up. I think I have 5 movies coming out this year. I think I got this one, Luckiest Man in America. Then I have 3 in a row this summer, within a month of each other. There's Naked Gun at Paramount, Fantastic Four at Marvel, Disney, and Americana with me and Sydney Sweeney at Lionsgate. And then in the fall, I'm in Deliver Me From Nowhere, the Bruce Springsteen film from Scott Cooper and Jeremy Allen White.
Fantastic. Hardest working man in Hollywood currently. So thank you so much for your time, and congratulations again. You're always perfect in every role. So thank you.
That means a lot. Thanks, Linda. Thanks for talking about our movie.
Oh, lovely. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys.
Hey, you guys!
Hey, you guys!
Hey, that's what they all say.
Hey, you guys!
Hey, you guys!